Hello. Hello, hello. It's good to see you. I can't really see you, so you have to be chatting in the chat box so that I know you're here. So, how are you guys this afternoon? And did you get the email with the week 1 checklist? Can you see and hear me? That would be good to know. Well, I need someone willing in the chat box to speak up. So, okay, good. Thank you. Very good. Okay. So, we're going to start Humble Habits. Hi, Holly and Lisa, Christina, Kristen, Allison. Yay, it's good to see you all here. So, all right. Humble habits. We know that we need them. And there are a few things that we need to keep in mind as we try to build them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about the habits that we're going to be building and what it takes to build them intentionally and to make them actually humble habits, seed habits that can be these tiny baby steps towards the growth and change that we want. Because too often we try to just jump whole hog into habit change or a new routine, a new way of being. We want to wake up and be a whole new person. So we can't do that. We need to incrementally build those changes into our lives. And it might seem like the habits that we're going to be doing won't make a difference. So you're going to have to trust me a little bit along the way, but you don't have to just trust me. Like, I didn't make it up. I based these things off of reading and research and stuff that I've done over the years on habits that I have done in my own life as well, and am still working on. And I'm excited to continue to work on these things together with you. So it's not just that I made this up. And we need to build incremental baby step habits that we will build on later. So we aren't trying to form our perfect prayer life. We're not trying to form our perfect exercise routine. We're not trying to create the best reading plan. All we're going to do is build in a few spots in our day where we can have like 15, 30-second pre-prepared prayer that we're going to stop and we're going to pray. And we're going to tie in some reading. And we're talking 2 or 3 minutes of reading, like a psalm or a poem or a page. And that's it. So don't try to cheat the system. Don't try to overstep the instructions and think that you can do better or be better than this. Like, trust the program and trust the research behind it, and give yourself time to make these changes, because these are all things that I know probably most of us have tried to build into our lives before and failed. And there are reasons for that. And there could be all kinds of reasons, but there are some reasons why it doesn't work for us that we can address head on. It is the way we've been doing it. It is the approach we've been doing that has been hindering the growth instead of helping the growth. And that's what we're going to address this time. There can be other things that get in the way, of course. I mean, life changes, big dramatic changes, big dramatic issues get in the way and can even, cause regression over growth that we have had. But we also just get ideas that are too grandiose. And then because we can't make those happen, we give up too early, and we try too hard to get too far too fast, and we burn out. So in the like tortoise and hare, we are being the hare, and it's not that we're taking a nap because we're so confident we're going to win. We do that big rush forward, and then we crash, and the tortoise gets ahead. And this time we're going to take that tortoise approach, and the name Humble Habits reminds us, like, it's okay to be the tortoise. It's okay. Even if it doesn't come naturally to you, if you're more of an all-in kind of person, then I am that kind of person. We need to take a step back and say, I need to take small steps, and I'm going to take small steps, and I'm going to go for incremental changes instead of big, gigantic life overhaul kinds of change. Yes. The overachiever in us. Yes. That's where we get the crash and burn and the boom and bust. And what we're going to work on for the next 6 weeks are 5 very important habits that we need to have, not just as homeschoolers. I know not all of you, but most of you are homeschooling, as mothers, as people. These are habits that we need to have to continue doing whatever work we're called to do with strength and resilience and with joy. Boom and bust is exciting. That's true. And sometimes that bust almost helps us with the boom part, right? Because some of us like the big dramatic change. And so sometimes having a little bust lets us feel like we're making a big important change again, right? Because we like to see that big leap. And so instead of continually moving forward, I think that one reason why we're kind of attracted to the boom and bust cycle, because I think a little bit in our hearts, sometimes we are, even though we know it's not good and we'll say it's not good, and we don't like that overwhelmed feeling, we don't like the busting, but it's enabling us to boom because we aren't, getting a little bit here and then boom, getting ahead. And then from there, boom, getting ahead. That's not how boom and bust works, right? We like that space. We like that dramatic change. And we can't have that gap, that dramatic change without, there we go, without going backwards. Going to that boom lets us go ahead. So we aren't picking up from here. We boom, and then we want that change again. Like we want to keep going. And the only way we know how to keep going is to boom, which we can't really get past here. So we bust, and that lets us keep going. And it's actually still incremental growth. It just looks a little more wild and crazy and dramatic, but we're actually still just making tiny progress if you actually tracked the progress, right? If we do make progress at all, sometimes that boom doesn't even get us farther than where we were, but it still feels like we still made this big change that feels exciting, that feels like we're doing something important and needed. But really, if you looked at the long haul, it doesn't help us in the long run. Whereas that just one small step, slow and steady, wins the race. There's a reason why it's cliche. And there's a reason why we keep hearing that story. It's because we need to be reminded that it's true, because it's not it doesn't feed our pride. It doesn't look exciting or interesting. And so we tend to dismiss it. Instead, we are going to embrace it. And I want you to commit for these humble habits to make the habits humble, to make the habits small, tiny seed habits, and not try to overstep it. And even if you say you have a prayer habit, which would be wonderful, and have a reading habit, have a movement habit, have a smiling habit. All these things we can still set a seed habit that will help us grow it more and more. But don't write any of them off and say, well, I'm already doing that. And also, don't try to set something that takes like half an hour. Use the time limits given in the program to challenge yourself, force yourself, but think of it as a challenge to keep it as small as possible. And don't dismiss it. And don't despise it. Don't despise the day of small beginnings. Embrace it, accept it as a challenge, and try to move forward in that way. So last round when we were doing this, I think the biggest pushback, the habit that people had the biggest problem with taking that tiny action was the exercise. Because a minute, 3 minutes of doing a little something doesn't seem like much. And, you see all the whatever, if you're doing a weight loss something, if you're doing any kind of training for a race, you're trying to get in shape, like all the recommendations say at least half an hour, right? And so we look at our day and like, where can we put half an hour? And so then, Humble Habits comes along and I say, just like 1 or 2 minutes. And you're like, but that's not what I'm, supposed to be doing. Well, okay, for this program, this is what you are supposed to be doing. And the reason why is not that 1 or 2 minutes is going to help you with weight loss or get you into shape. I'm not saying that 1 or 2 minutes it's going to make that dramatic change that we're looking for, right? We're looking for some kind of dramatic change. But the tiny habit, the small step forward is something you can build on, not just in time, but in your attitude, in your identity. It's how you're seeing yourself. And a lot of times we take change that we know we need to make, and it doesn't really work for us because we're holding ourselves back, or we're bad mouthing what we're doing in our own head, even while trying to do it. I've done that with, say, the Couch to 5K program, which the only reason I have no interest in running, I don't like running. I don't ever want to do a 5K. And yet I have started that program over and over again because it's supposed to be like a fast and efficient way to lose weight. That's the motivation I have. But the whole time that I am doing it, in my own head, I'm grumbling and complaining and wishing I didn't have to. And maybe if I just do this, then I will lose the weight and then I won't have to keep doing this. And I have that kind of, I don't want to be doing this attitude the whole time I am doing it, and every time after and every time before. And it prevents me from starting what I say that I'm going to do. And it means that I give up sooner. I've never finished. And that's never going to stick as a habit. And, I don't actually want that to be a habit. So, as far as what I want, I don't like it. I don't want it, right? I don't see any reward. And the reward that I want isn't one that comes immediately after. I feel awful after. And so it's like an anti-reward. And anyway, so we do that with our other habits as well. I'm never going to run more and finish that program or run a 5K in a race or not in a race, because the whole time I'm doing that program, I am actually rejecting it and just trying to distance myself even while doing it. Like, I don't like this. I'm just doing this because I have to. And when we have that kind of an attitude, we're actually preventing change and preventing ourselves from growing in that direction. So, and we can go into ways to have an exercise like regimen that maybe we don't do that, where it comes down to attitude. And we are going to talk about self-talk and attitude and how to change that in tiny incremental ways. So yes, right. So we can make that small change that ends up shifting the way we think about ourselves and does still builds the muscles. So like Lisa says, 3 squats every time you go to the bathroom makes quite a difference. Like, it doesn't really take that much time. It's tied to something you're already doing. And you find out that over time, those 3 do build up and you actually do get stronger. So then when you start doing something for, a half an hour exercise regimen, you find out you're starting at a better place, from a better place physically. So you're physically able to do more. But even more important than that is the fact that you have become a person who exercises. It's no longer something you're always procrastinating. It's something you just do. Oh, this is just something I do. And so it's actually a mental hurdle that you've overcome. And that's the part that's going to make the real big difference, even more than maybe building those leg muscles, which is going to happen. It's actually overcoming those mental hurdles that we set up that we often don't even realize we have. Overcoming the bad attitudes that's distancing ourselves from the ability to build our habits and own the change that we want to make. So the tiny habits, the real power of the tiny habits is shifting how we see ourselves, what we actually do with our time, actually overcoming procrastination by taking away our excuses, and overcoming that starting is the big deal, where the big power of the Humble Habits program is in. Right. So instead of saying, it's half an hour, I can't do that right now, I'm going to feel awful afterwards, I don't want to, you say, well, this is no big deal. Like, stop complaining and just do it. And you actually build that habit of telling yourself, stop complaining, just do it. And that becomes a habit. In all these little things, that's actually the habit that we're building, is the habit of saying, it's not a big deal, just do it. And we're doing that because we're choosing things that aren't big deals. It's very, very important that whatever you choose for these humble habits is not a big deal to you. And you have to also accept that it's going to look at first like it's insignificant, but you cannot let yourself call it insignificant, because then that's the bad attitude, kind of distancing yourself from the change and saying, I'm too good for that. I can do more. I should be able to do more. That's pride. This is humble habits. We are not allowed to say that it's too little for us. We're just going to do the little thing and find out that it's actually a big thing to overcome that hurdle of just starting already. Just do it. As you go through this course, you are not increasing the time. Actually, it's not part of the goal. You could afterwards, but actually and we will talk in the last week about building on what you've set, but really for this 6 weeks, we are only focusing on taking the small actions and not growing them. Because, really, it's not really a habit after 1 week. It might not even be a really solid habit after 6 weeks. So it would be too soon to build them into more. So for the 6 weeks, we are only doing the seed tiny habits, and we're going to build a few of them in. So you'll be doing a number of different things, but none of them should require time on your calendar or on your schedule or blocking anything off or any kind of big changes that are disruptive. And all of them should actually be serving everything else. You'll get advantage, benefit from all of them. Although that's not really the reason why you're doing any of them. They will feed into the other things you're doing. Because we're talking about prayer and reading and movement and attitude and smiling. Those actions, even the seed form, even the teeny tiny actions we're going to be doing, will help you in everything else you're doing. So you will see those rewards, which are essential. So let's talk real quick then about the pieces of a habit, because you have to have all 3 pieces of a habit for this to work. So don't skip any of the pieces. And the checklist that you get, I don't know if you've already seen the checklist for week 1, but you can't skip any of the pieces. So you need to work through and do the checklist, do the worksheet, and make sure you have stated, in clear writing to yourself, because that helps with the clarity. And it is mostly a mental mind game that we are overcoming in ourselves. So writing it out is important. Stating it clearly is important, and reviewing it daily is important. So don't skip any of the 3 pieces of a habit that you're going to be asked to do. And those pieces are a cue or a trigger. I think I kind of use both. A cue or a trigger, the action that we take, the thing that we call the habit, the action, and then the reward. And the reward isn't something like chocolate, or it's not a prize that you get for doing it. That's called an extrinsic reward, where you get some kind of, you kind of dangle the carrot and you get the carrot if you do the thing. And extrinsic rewards have limited use. It's not like you should never, ever use them, but that's not what you want to rely on for lasting change, for actually growing as a person and building character. You don't build character by dangling carrots in front of people. That actually diminishes character if it's relied on exclusively, because we have to then be bribed. Basically, we're not bribing ourselves to be good. We are learning to love to be good. To do that, we have to rely on intrinsic rewards. So it's going to be a little bit harder maybe to figure out what that is. It might not seem at first like a reward. So it's another place where you might have to trust the process. An intrinsic reward. So I don't know. I feel like I tell this story all the time. So yes, I'm thinking of an example. So years and years, I was trying to build the habit of making my bed. I did not grow up making my bed. I grew up thinking that it was a waste of time. I didn't care. So why should anyone else care? And so I just had a bad attitude about making my bed, and it was not a habit. It was like an anti-habit. It was a part of my identity to not make my bed. So even if I did make my bed, it felt strange. Like, that bed isn't mine. That's a weird thing. So I was uncomfortable with a made bed, because it was such a non-habit. So, fast forward a few years, and I'm trying to be a good homemaker. And I don't know why, but every single place you look, talks about, either takes for granted you're making your bed, because it's like a house cleaning book for people who are already cleaning their house well. And can't imagine not having a made bed. I was the opposite of that. Or told you that's like the first thing you need to do is to make your bed. I was like, fine, I'll try it and I'll prove that this isn't going to work for me, that I don't have to. Like, I can still be the kind of person that I want to be. I can still be a good homemaker without making my bed. I'll show you. I'll try making my bed and it won't make a difference. And then, right? That'll be winning. So, I went at, trying to learn to make my bed with that kind of an attitude, without really wanting it, but just trying it several times. And guess what? It never stuck. I never learned to like it. I still didn't care. I didn't like it because the whole time I was doing it, I was reminding myself, you don't like this. You're doing it, but you don't like it. That's an anti-reward. And it's a bad attitude. So, eventually then I kept, sometimes I wonder, like, why did they, well, one thing, it's always used as an example for habits. Like, it never left me alone. This topic of making my bed never left me alone. It's like, okay, I'm going to try it again. And also my husband's kind of the opposite. And, because I thought it was a waste of time. He would make the bed, just before getting into it. So then that was a little bit, that kind of spoke to my motivations a little bit more closely, because if you are going to make your bed, like, you might as well make it in the beginning and not right before you get in. Because, like, the worst thing in the world is wasting your time. And it's even more of a waste of time to make your bed right before you get into it than to make it in the morning. So I kind of had a little, like, you're going to make the bed and then just ruin it. He said that the point of making the bed was that it was comfortable to sleep in. So he didn't see it as, he didn't care whether or not I made the bed, but he was going to sleep in a made bed. That's what he cared about. So to me, it was this thing that I was supposed to do to have a clean house. Anyway, finally, I think it was, reading some of this stuff on habits, and I changed the way I tried to build the habit. I decided I was going to, and part of my reason was that it would, my husband didn't give me a hard time, wasn't asking me to add making the bed to my list of things to do, but I knew that he would appreciate it. And so that gave me a little bit of incentive and motivation. There was a little bit of intrinsic reward going on there, even though it wasn't immediately tied. It's not like every time he saw the made bed, he was going to say thank you, because, it's just a little thing, and maybe once or twice, right? But that gave a little bit of incentive, and that's intrinsic reward. It's a meaningful reason to do it. And then what I would do is I made the bed and just paused for like 15 seconds after making the bed and said, well, that looks nice. And it will make my husband happy. And it looks nice. And it didn't take that long. So, I would tell myself things that were true and positive instead of things that they might have been true, but they were negative. Like, I don't care. I was never going to learn to care if I kept telling myself I didn't care. I was not giving myself the room. I was shutting that door by my attitude. So I organized my attitude as, instead of only making my bed, I organized my attitude about it and reminded myself of what was true. And so the reward to making my bed was just saying, oh, look at what I just did. It wasn't hard. I just did it. Look at that. And then when I would walk in the room, and at first it felt like, oh my, who made their bed? That's kind of weird, awkward. I'm like, look, I made my bed. And, just a tiny little pat on the back, like, I like it. And so just saying, I like that. That looks nice. That looks nice. That looks nice every day. And suddenly, if the bed's not made, I make it so that it looks nice because I like it when it looks nice. And so maybe it's a little bit of brainwashing, but I was brainwashing myself the other way in all my other times. So we are going to find those little things. They really don't add time. It's just what you're telling yourself. paying attention to that story we're telling yourself, we're telling ourselves. Right. We have to, it's not just ordering our outside world, like the bed, it's also ordering our inside self and saying, you know what? I've been telling myself for years that this didn't matter, but I was wrong. And I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to like it. And it actually didn't take that long. I was really surprised. It did not take long to learn that habit of making my bed once I changed my approach and once I changed my attitude. I had tried and tried and tried many times for longer, and it didn't stick. Within a couple of weeks, it was just not a big deal, and I just made my bed. And it's been years now, and I just make my bed. So, and the big shift, well, the shift was my attitude, and the way that I made that attitude shift. It partly it was a decision up front, but then it was a repeated grabbing hold of truth, even that tiny, insignificant, doesn't seem like it matters that much truth right after doing the action. And you know, another way you can do that is by asking then your husband or someone. You say, you know what, I'm trying to learn this habit right now, and it would really, if this is something that you would like to help me learn, it would help me build this habit if you say, hey, I noticed and I appreciated. That's still intrinsic, because it's tied to the action you're taking. It's a reward tied to the action you're taking. It's not like I made my bed so I get chocolate. Like there's nothing that, they're not actually connected. And so you don't actually, it's just kind of a behavioralism, like Pavlov's dogs. The bell and the food have no tie, but we're trying to build this reaction, build a habit based on simple behavioralism, which isn't how we should be treating ourselves or anyone else as people. We should be learning to love what must be done. So we take what we should be doing and we learn to love it by practicing loving it, which means noticing and reminding ourselves that this is a good thing. And it's really that simple. So say our first habit here is prayer. We need a cue. So we need something that's already a part of our day that's reliable, an anchor in our day. It doesn't have to be tied to a certain time so much as some other piece that always happens in our day. So if you always drink coffee, if you always drink water at a certain time, you know, a certain point in your day, if, you know, you always do eat meals, even if it's not at the same time of day, there's still the meals. Maybe it's making your bed. Maybe that's already an anchor point in your day. Using the bathroom, things that are guaranteed to happen in our day. They don't have to happen at the same time. We're not tying these to times on the clock, although you could use as a cue, you could set an alarm and that could be a cue. But we are looking more for natural, organic kind of cues and prompts and triggers. We're looking for things that are already happening in our day that will continue to happen in our day. We don't necessarily want to rely on timers all the time, some of us. And so find those things that are already reliable in your day, like the cup of coffee, using the bathroom, getting dressed, maybe making your bed. That's a reliable part of my day now. So I could tie something to that now. Right. It's not false affirmation. It's not just telling yourself like you're amazing based on nothing. We are grabbing hold of truth and reminding ourselves of truth. It is actually a good thing to have a made bed. And I actually had to like philosophically wrestle with that one myself. And sometimes I still feel the like, because for so long I was, you know, really deep-seatedly emotionally, as far as I can be emotionally, philosophically opposed. So sometimes even that that long entrenched opinion still kind of gurgles up, and I'm like, no, remember, we overcame that. You were wrong. You have admitted defeat on that point and changed positions. So it's true. Making your bed is a good thing. It's outer order. It's claiming and loving order instead of chaos. So there might be hope for him when he's 30. What you were wrestling with logically at 12, 13, 16, I feel like, well, maybe by the time they're 30, like me, it'll iron out. So we find the cue or the prompt, the trigger that we are going to tie our habit to. So when that happens, then I this. How are we going to remember? The cue is happening already. We aren't necessarily noticing because these are already habits, right? Just getting that first cup of coffee, using the bathroom, we just do it without thinking about it. So we need to become aware that we're supposed to do something else. We have to tie a new habit to something that already is a habit, and that's going to take a little bit of extra attention and intentionality, but we're going to shortcut that a little bit by using index cards, a scrap of paper, maybe an actual card, like you could use the front of an art card or something. You're going to have a visible cue at that place to remind yourself. So for prayer, that's pretty simple because you're going to put the prayer that you're going to pray so that you have no excuses, right? The main thing we're doing in Humble Habits is overcoming our habit of excuses. So we have no excuses. We are building the habit. So we are going to choose what we are going to pray. And then we're going to write it out. And then we're going to put that in a very visible spot. So for example, I put mine on my bathroom mirror so that when I wash my hands, I see it and I pray it. So I have the cue that's already going to happen in the day. And then I have the prompt right there, both the visible reminder to do it and also like exactly what to do written out. So I was like, okay, stop. You have no reason not to right here. Now, the first time I tried this, I put the card like in the corner, in a place that looked, a little bit off to the side, and it looked good over here in this spot, but it was over here, and I'm washing my hands here, and I could totally, especially because I'm just a live in the head kind of person, not notice that it was there. So when I was first building the habit, I had to put it like in front of the mirror, like right where my eyes are, right here, right in front of my face, like in my face, like you can't miss it. There it is. It looks so awkward and out of place that you have to notice it. As I built the habit, then I could move it over because I was like looking for it. I'd built the habit of seeing it and doing it. So when it wasn't there, I looked for it. And I've changed it a few times for what it says, but it's still there. And when I notice that I start ignoring it, I just move it and make it highly visible again. So we need those triggers, and it might be awkward at first. I think, Abby, did you just put it like right on your coffee maker? It has to be in a place where you just can't miss it, at least for the first few weeks. Don't put it in a subtle place. Put it where there is no getting around it without noticing it. And it's for a short time, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe. Trust me, do it. Then you do it. You've associated it. You've associated the cue, the prompt with the action. Then you take the action. No excuses. We're overcoming procrastination and excuse making. And then you notice that was a good thing. And that's a reward. So you could even make it more concrete than that. In the big picture, we are simply noticing that it's a good thing that we just did and reminding ourselves, this is good. This is worthwhile. And so but you need to give yourself a specific, concrete action or set of words to remind yourself of that, because it's going to make it automatic. What we're going for is automaticity, making it automatic. So it has to be clear and repeated. So, yeah, so people are sharing there some of the places they put things. So share too what kinds of rewards you did. I know some people did, like, after they did it, they did a little fist, like, yeah. So a little, really actually physically reminding yourself, pumping yourself up, getting like giving yourself a little actual physical feedback that says, I like this. This is great. Sometimes a little happy dance, maybe, or happy dance, or a set of words where you say, you could just end your prayer with, thank you, Lord, that you hear our prayers, right? That's the reward. But let the words that you choose or the action that you take be the exact same every time for the humble habits. I'm not saying that for the rest of your life, you're going to be doing this every time after washing your hands or after every time you pray. But for the humble habits program, you are. So pick some kind of positive reinforcement. And remember, this isn't behavioral change, because these are actually tied to truth and they're meaningful. They're not random association. They are actually good things, and we are giving ourselves a concrete feedback, reminding ourselves that these are good things that we are building. And you might need a laminator, apparently. So yes, so the hands, boom. Yeah, lots of good options. So pick something that resonates with you, that feels like you, that feels like you are growing a part of you that you want to grow. So, okay. That is going to be our Humble Habits program. Remember that the main point of the program is actually building the habit of doing the right thing. These are tiny little things. So it doesn't really seem like they're significant, doesn't really seem like this is going to be a big deal. And it is, because the habit that you're building is just doing it. No excuses, no, the other things are not getting in the way. The only thing getting in the way is the head game that you're playing. And we're going to change that head game. So that is the biggest part of Humble Habits, is the game, the story that's happening in your head. So that's why you have to make that action obvious. And that's why you have to have a reward that's the same and repeated and actually audible, physical, clear, same words, because you are helping yourself change your attitude about doing what needs to be done. So, okay. So small, there's no excuse not to. That's right. So maybe you could choose a motto for this course as well. So if you come to that point, you come to that card in front of your face and you feel right? You all know what I mean, right? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. You're going to see it and you're going to go, That's the opposite. See, we do that, and that is the negative reinforcement. That's us distancing ourselves and giving into the habit of excuse making. So the fist pump, the yeah, the boom, the whatever we do is the opposite. We've been doing the, and we need to fit, like actually in reality with our bodies, give ourselves the opposite reaction. We need to practice it. We need to do it. We need to practice it because we need to replace. We can't just stop that bad habit. We have to replace it with its opposite. So that's what we're doing. So don't, and again, humble habits. Don't be too good for it. Don't be too proud for it. Pair these things together to make the change stick. And it's much deeper than, I mean, prayer is already deep enough, right? But the change that's happening isn't just in the fact that we are praying more, even though that really in itself is enough. And it's not just that we are moving a little bit more or smiling a little bit more. The main point and the main advantage that comes through working through the program is overcoming the habit of excuse making and the habit of inaction, of letting yourself off the hook. We are going to replace the habit of letting ourselves off the hook with the positive habit of just doing it. So I am excited to do that with you for the next 6 weeks.